So in the first part of this section, we have seen how to create a purchase order. In the second part, we're going to see what happens in the second part of this video. In this part of the video, we're going to see how what happens after that. The vendor receives the PO and the vendor says, okay, I'm going to send it now. Maybe he'll take some time, 5 days, 10 days, depending on how long it takes to procure those materials. Say in 10 days, he sends us the 100 kilos of flour, right? So he's going to load them up in a truck and then send them over to our plant, because we've asked them to supply it to our plant, because that's where we need the flour. Now, along with the truck and the goods comes the packing slip. What is a packing slip? You have seen this when you receive an order from Amazon, right? So when you receive an order from Amazon, in the large brown box, there comes a slip, a piece of paper that says, this is the quantity, this is the material, this is where it's coming from, and this is where it's going to, right? So it's going to my coffee shop, right? And this is the address of my plant, my telephone number, and my customer ID. This is how the vendor refers to me, 25412. And when was the order placed? Say on 1st January 2016. What is the order number? This is his order number, the vendor's order number, and this is my purchase order number, right? So this is where the cross reference is important. I call it potato, he calls it potato. Doesn't matter. It's the same thing. We have different copies in each of our systems. The purchase order, I create a purchase order in my system, number as 45000, and the same order, when he receives it, he's got his own ERP. He enters it as a sales order in his system. So, and it's got a unique number. The vendor uses that to refer to that purchase order or sales order, and I use this number to refer to my purchase order. And don't worry if you don't understand it. It's not important. Not unless you understand the sales processes, you understand what's a sales order number. That's fine. We are talking about purchase order numbers here. And then we have our flour. What quantity, right? And how much has been shipped. Now let's go ahead and say the truck has come in, and we have to now receive the goods into our warehouse, right? How do you do that? Right in the purchase order hierarchy, we have different sections, right? Create, release, blah, blah, blah. And then we have something called follow-on functions. And under that, we have goods receipt. And under that, we have goods receipt. So let's go do a goods receipt. Do you want to save it? No. So under follow-on functions, we have goods receipt. Click on that. Right? Here you can enter your purchase order. What is this transaction? What is this transaction? How do you know what this transaction is? If you click on this little button here, or if you click on these little set of arrows here and click on this button, you'll see a transaction here. It's called MIGO, M-I-G-O. So that's the name of the transaction, MIGO, M-I-G-O. It's a technical name. And the actual transaction is goods receipt for for a purchase order. The transaction is MIGO. That's how you can find out what is a transaction code for any transaction that you're doing. Some of them might not have a transaction code, but most end user transactions do have a transaction code. If you want to see them in the menu path, because for example, if you look at this screen, you don't see MIGO here against goods receipt. But if you look at my screen, for example, let's go back. If you see MIGO, right? How do you enable that? You go to extras, settings, and then ensure that you have the display technical names checked on, right? If you don't have that, you wouldn't see this MIGO here. If you have that, click OK. You'll have all the technical details there, like so. Okay. Follow-on functions, MIGO. So that's how you enable transaction codes. All right. Now we want to receive the goods that the vendor has sent. We want to receive the goods that the vendor has sent into our warehouse. Now the vendor has taken 10 days to send us the goods, right? In the meantime, you'd have created so many different purchase orders, either to the same vendor or to different vendors. So how do you pull back the PO number that the vendor has sent? You could take that packing slip, right? There was a packing slip, remember? This packing slip contains the PO. You could use that. Just type it in and then pull your PO. Or you can use search to pull in the PO based on dates or based on who created it. So these are all the search criteria that you have. You can search by company, you can search by purchase order, you can search by purchase document, so on and so forth. Right? You can also search by vendor. For example, if you want to look at all the purchase orders created for that vendor, you could do that. Let's see how to do it. So click on this button, right? We're going to search for purchase orders. Click on that button, and then instead of this tab, go to the vendor tab. Where is it? Purchase documents by vendor, right? And then put your vendor 1222 and click OK. So these are the purchase orders created for this vendor. And I'm looking at the one that is created on 2016. Just select it, click OK, and then as usual, hit enter. The system is going to pull the purchase order details here, right? You can go to the material and you know that the material is flour and the quantity is 100, and where did we ask them to be delivered, Chicago plant, so on and so forth. The system has already pulled all the details for that purchase order, right? So the materials quantities are automatically pulled from the purchase order into the screen. Remember, the purchase order was a different transaction. This is a different transaction. So into this transaction, SAP has pulled all the details from the purchase order, right? If you think everything is okay, you can do a visual inspection. And if you think everything is okay, just say item okay. That means you're giving it a thumbs up. Let's do it on the system. So click item okay, right? Hit enter and click post or save. You can do a check as well, to see if there are any errors. And if the system foresees errors, it shows you what the errors could be. In this case, this is a standard error that you might get when you're working on a training system, an IDIS system, right? Posting only possible in periods 2006, 2011. What is this error? Almost you're going to see this error almost all the time in a training system, but when you do it in a productive system, you might not have it. So what does this really mean? Accounting, especially material accounting, again, don't worry too much about it. What it says is, don't worry, what it says is the accounting periods are still only open for 2006 period 11, which is November and December, but we are now in 2016, 2016. So the system is 10 years behind because it's a training system. Nobody has updated it. So it's typically it's the duty of the finance consultant to update it. And how do you update it? You go to a transaction. So we're going to close this here, and we're going to do a transaction called MMPV. You want to save it? No. So go to a transaction called MMPV. Okay, click OK, and then put your company code 3000. Then here put in 12 2006, because that's the period that we have to open, because 11, I believe 10 and 11 have been closed, right? So try this. It says it's not the current year 2006, which is fine. Hit enter, and it says the current year is 12 2006. So we gotta open 01 2007. So again, okay, so we are entering the next open period. Okay, so period closing is complete, log issued. So this is the message that you see when SAP has successfully closed a period. To understand this a little bit, let me give you a little bit of information here. So we are in 2016, right? So in 2016 has, let's say by convention, has 12 periods, Jan, Feb, so on until December, right? So each period is labeled as 01, 02, 03, all the way until 12. At any given point in time, only 2 periods of material management or material accounts are open. For example, we are in April, which means 04 and 03, the previous period, should be open by default. You cannot have more than 2 periods open. But because this is a training system, the system was stuck almost in 2006, right? That was the last transaction anybody has done, maybe, right? Now we have got to close each of these periods and then move on to 2007, close each of these periods and then move on to 2008, close each of them and then move on to 2009, on to 2016. So we've got to close 10 years worth of periods to come to the current period, right? This is not a problem in a productive system because it will always be up to date. Because this is a training system, this is something that you have to do to really come up to speed. It doesn't take long, really. It looks very it looks very time consuming, but each year doesn't take more than 2 minutes. Okay, let's do it on the system real fast. So another error that you might get when you're executing this transaction is you have to enter a storage location. What is a storage location? A plant is where you manufacture goods. That's the traditional definition of a plant anyway. A storage location is a place where you store the goods. Now, why do we need to have so many different storage locations? For example, if I am a coffee shop, I store flour, sugar, and all the different kinds of raw materials. I store coffee beans maybe separately because I need to preserve the flavor, so it needs to go into a certain location. And I might store baked goods separately. The point being, a storage location is a place or a conceptual location where we store goods. And one plant could be associated with multiple storage locations. For all practical purposes, think of a storage location as a warehouse. So this plant in Chicago, for example, could be associated with 2 or 3 different storage locations. Or it could be just one. And your storage location need not be always based on materials. It could be based on physical location. For example, if my plant is in Chicago, my storage location for coffee could be in Schaumburg, and for something else based on convenience could be in Naperville or in Lincoln Park or any other suburbs because real estate is cheaper there. Just like the way we have given a plant a number, each storage location will be given a number to. It could be a number, or it could be alphanumeric, or it could be simply alphabetic, like BKG1 for baked goods, or Naperville 1 for Naperville. So you flag the item as OK and try to do a check again, and you get this error. So where do you fill the storage location? You go to storage location, and you can either go to the drop down and select a storage location, or you could just enter the storage location manually like 0001 if you know the storage location. So that's how you fix the storage location issue. Another error that you might have is also related to posting periods. This time it's not the material posting, it's the finance posting. Again, if you are starting for the first time, don't worry, it's not very important. But just know how to fix this. In order to fix this problem, you have to go to the transaction OB52. It's a finance transaction. Select your company code. When I talk about company code, it's the data that you entered in the purchase org data tab. And then for the ending year, make sure you end it in the current year. So this is 2016, so I enter 2016 here. It's really simple, I'll just show it how. So open another tab, go to OB52, scroll down to 3000, and for all these rows I've already made the correction, but you see it was 2008 before. Now I've corrected that to 2016. So now you would not get that error, but if you get that error, this is how you fix it. So you go change it and save it. Now you're all good to go, just save the document. And here you have the material document 5 2503. So this is the material document that's posted.